Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome in to the Backroad. The NASCAR Cup Series is heading to the Paper Clip, Martinsville Speedway this weekend. Going to be a fun one. Stay tuned. We're going to keep cracking open those bushes and keep on riding down the back road.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checkered flag. Let's roll this race.
Two from the stage.
What's up, everyone? This is the Backroad. It's in between media's fantasy and NASCAR betting show. Elliot Hicks and Seth Woolcock here with you, and Cody Zeeb is our guest. Gentlemen, this is going to be a good one tonight.
Oh, let's go. We are bouncing back. It's been a couple brutal weeks in the NASCAR betting circle. And no Rod tonight, but we have the next best thing, his co-host from the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Cody, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. I'm just going to try and Josh bury it over here, hold the fort down until Rod comes back. But yeah, I'm excited. Appreciate the invitation. Excited to be on with you guys. Love listening to you every week, and excited to be part of the show.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure having you, man. We're looking forward to talking Martinsville, but we had another short track last week, and we got a little dirty doing it, both in the books and on the track. Let's look. Well, guys, we were talking a little bit before we went live here about treating Bristol dirt next year if it comes back, kind of like we do the super speedways and some road courses. Maybe not bet it quite as heavy. The way the books look, that might not be a bad strategy, Seth.
Yeah, I want to just sincerely apologize to the in-between media family out there, everyone who listened to the show last week. Our guest, Ryan Stevens from Win the Race, he did great last week. I think he put a couple winners out there. He was high on Chris Bell. I had one of the worst betting weeks of my life between the Masters and between Bristol Dirt. We were heavy on Larson, and it just didn't come to fruition there. For some reason, I was heavy on Brad K, and God, he laid a stinker as well. And then just at the end, when I'm just hoping for one or two bets to hit, and what happens? Alex Bowman gets taken out on the last lap. Your guy Elliot, we lose our top 10 bet. So terrible week overall. I apologize to everyone. But here's to moving forward and, higher tides on the horizon. Cody, was it a better week for you and Rod over at the NASCAR Gambling Podcast?
I would love to say yes, but no is the true answer. It was just a rough week overall. I'd like to leave this one in the rearview mirror at this point because, it just same thing. I mean, we're pretty heavy on Larson, which looked like a great call. He came out in the heat races, looked very good, and was running good at the beginning. Then for whatever reason pitted, and then things just went downhill from there. But yeah, we hit a few things that somewhat salvaged the day, but definitely a negative day, unfortunately. And yeah, I think that if that race comes back or if they're doing a dirt race somewhere else, you might just have to treat it like a super speedway and just play it lighter because it's so hard to predict with so much chaos that happens on that type of track.
Well, and Elliot, we finally saw the dirt ringers come to the top of this thing. And that's what we've been waiting for years and years with this. And it hadn't happened with Logano and Kyle Busch. So when we do go back to the dirt, are you going to be thinking more about playing those guys like Briscoe and Seabell, who I frankly just wasn't high enough on them?
Yeah, I mean, if the dirt does come back, I don't think that it will at Bristol. Maybe they'll adjust the schedule and go to a real dirt track. But yeah, the dirt ringers have never been a terrible play. But, 2021, when we did it the first time, it was still the old car, correct? So Logano winning that. We saw Suarez run well, who'd never run on dirt. 21, the next gen car, everything was new. Now the second year, same sort of thing. Guys were getting used to it. We saw Larson run well and then get kind of caught up late. And Christopher Bell, big dirt guy. 2021, though, I mean, Briscoe's run some dirt, and Reddick, or maybe Reddick's been run a little dirt too. They probably should have won the race, not Kyle Busch, if you remember that one. But
true.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think dirt and the Cup Series really mix. I'm glad that we're going back to good old asphalt and concrete this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and look forward here in Horizon Forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
So a nice traditional race this weekend. We've been coming to Martinsville Speedway as long as I can remember. They call it the paper clip, longer straightaways, tight turns. I don't know. The spring night race here, guys, looking at it, normally Martinsville's had some pretty good races. That was a pretty boring race last year. I don't know quite if that's going to factor in to some of the looks this week.
Yeah, man, it was a tough watch last season. Good if you were rocking the guys who started up front last year. Cody, what was your kind of takeaway of that race and maybe what we look forward to here heading into Martinsville once again?
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of a stinker of a race. I mean, that the Richmond race and then that race were kind of the first two short track races in the new car with everything. And I think that we saw in the fall time when they came back to Martinsville, things were a lot different. I believe it was also super cold at this race last year, which I think affected it a lot, which this weekend looks like it's going to be a lot warmer. So, and that's more similar to how the fall race was. So I have high hopes for it being more like the fall where things were more competitive. I mean, like you guys said, it was basically Chase Elliott led the first half of the race. William Byron led the second half. That was about it. I know in the fall we had 4 different guys that led at least 50 laps. So the lead was getting changed around more. It was easier to pass. There was better racing. Obviously, you had the Hail Melon at the end there.
Yes, sir.
But I expect it to be
banned by NASCAR, sadly.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I expect it to be look a lot more like the fall race. I think that just early in that new car, they hadn't made the proper adjustments on the package yet and figured that out. But it seems like we're heading in the right direction. I mean, Richmond a few weeks ago, it's hard to compare because they're not obviously the same type of tracks, but they are the short track package and everything. And that's been better than some of the previous Richmond races were kind of stinkers as well. So I have high hopes for this weekend as far as the racing aspect of things.
Elliot, that is one of the big debates this weekend is can we take these other shorter tracks that we've been to so far this season, Richmond and Phoenix, into account? Because some industry standards or some industry experts are saying that this is a unique track and you can't comp it to anything. But are you weighing those finishes at these other short tracks so far in 2023?
So it's definitely a unique track, but as long as they're using the same packages as the other short tracks, obviously a couple things will be different. Martinsville is relatively unique, the little paperclip shape and everything, but the cars are going to behave generally similarly to how they did with the same package. So I don't think, maybe don't put as cutters, so to speak, but I think that it's still worth looking at these short flats here.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely did take those into account, the finishes and the speed rankings from Richmond and Phoenix. Also looking at Martinsville 1 and 2, the finishes, total speed rankings from iFantasy Race, and the late in a run data as well. I looked at some driver track history overall here at Martinsville, and then recent performance in the overall standings. Cody, anything else that you were taking into account with your data this week?
I think you just hit it on the head. I mean, previous Martinsville is probably the most I'm going to weigh into it. Obviously, looking more at the last couple of years or last year, I guess, with the new car, more specifically, but also guys that have done well in the past. I think we're starting to see now that they're getting these new cars down that a lot of guys that have done well at previously on a track have reverted back to doing well there. It's not quite the unknowns with the new car. So I think that you can look back at that, but as well as a little bit from Phoenix, a little bit from Richmond. Rod and I are both big momentum guys. Like, what have you done for me lately? I think even if it's a different style of track, you can kind of look at who's got momentum and who's kind of building things, weigh that in. I think you can look a little bit at the Clash too. Honestly, the Coliseum race might be the closest comparison to this track. There's no exact comparison. It's so unique, but the Clash that is, and again, different formats and stuff. So it's hard to exactly weigh that, but there are certain things you can take from that for sure.
Yeah, I actually did factor in the Clash a little bit as well, just because I think it is with the type of apex that's going to be on this track. It's similar to it. So I love that shout out there, Cody. Elliot, what do you say we go ahead and jump into the ranks here?
Let's roll it. Let's get the tire tiers for the week going. Alrighty, you know them, you love them. It's the Backroads Tire Tiers. We got our 5 tiers here. We got all 36 charter cars on the board. Cody, where are we starting this week for the driver A's?
Oh boy. So give me a little refresher on how we're doing this.
Yes, yeah. So we're going to be looking at both DraftKings salary data and Fantrax data. This is a 1 week thing. Who are you playing in your lineup? Basically from head to toe here, starting with the top of the board, William Byron, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. Those are the highest 3 right now in DK salary.
Yeah, so I think if you're taking one of those guys, it's got to be William Byron, right? Look what he did here last season on this track. Absolutely dominated the second half of that spring race, picking up the win there. And Hendrick has visited victory lane in the Cup Series here 27 times. They just seem to have a hell of a handle on this track. And so I don't think you can go wrong with William Byron. And look at his start to this season, right? He's the only driver with 2 wins. He's looked fast. He's getting Rudy Fugle back this week as crew chief. I think things are looking up for the 24 car.
Okay. Elliot, where are you going here with the second driver in Tier A here?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Chevys are the favorites, but if you're looking Toyota's way, go with that 20 car, Christopher Bell. Of course, he won here to get into the championship race last year, won Bristol Dirt last week. High salary, of course, at 10.5, but the driver A's you're going to pay up a little bit. And, see Bell in that 20, maybe becoming the premier Toyota driver over there at JGR.
Okay. I can't believe I did not plan to be even able to talk about Kyle Larson here in the tiers, but man, I think he's the one I'm paying up for at 20 or at 10,600, a little bit of a discount for Byron, a little bit more than Bell. I know he burned us last week, boys. I know it's hard to kind of go right back to him, but sometimes I do want to take the stats aside and talk about the person inside of the car. He was fired up about what happened with Ryan Preece, and rightfully so, in my opinion. It led 68 laps here in the fall, finished second here as well. I think he's going to have a fast race car. I think he's going to unload well. So I'm excited to see what Kyle Larson can do. He's going to be one of my anchors, but I really think this is one of those weeks where I don't know if you can necessarily go wrong with any of these top 3. I don't mind paying up for the other 2 as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kyle Larson, as long as it's not a super speedway, he's never a bad pick anywhere. He can always get the job done anywhere. So, yeah, and all 3 of these guys, obviously Bell won last week too. So momentum, like I talked about a minute ago, very much in his favor.
Who else, Cody, would you say belongs maybe not in this sub tier of driver A's, but still in the A tier overall?
Denny Hamlin for me. I'm really big on Denny Hamlin. One of my picks to win over on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast this week. He knows this track well. He mentioned on Actions Detrimental, his podcast this week, that the 11 car will go on their hot streak starting this week. I'm going to take his word for that. He's actually the all-time leader in laps led at this track, and he's 9th on the all-time overall list for laps led on this track. So knows how to get out front, put himself in position. He's got 17 top 5s. He's won at this track 5 times. He knows his way around here. And I think, obviously, if you look at the odds, the top 6 cars it's 300 cars and 3 Gibbs cars. And I think that leads to these are going to be the 2 fast teams. And I think that right there with Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin has to be mentioned in the same breath.
Love it. Love it. Elliot, who else belongs here in driver A's for you?
I'm going to stick with JGR and go with Martin Truex Jr. I'm hopping back on the MTJ train. The Clash was when we started high on him, or at least I did. Seth, you were a little later to hop on that 19 train. I think MTJ will continue running well here and have a good finish at Martinsville.
Okay. I think Joey Logano also belongs in this tier, boys. There's something about this track, also like Denny Hamlin here, as you pointed out, Cody. He loves it. He's great here. And honestly, he could have won this race last season. He was very respectful to William Byron at the end of that and did not move him. Maybe he couldn't have got to him. I think he could have and moved him, but with that race, finished 7th in the fall as well to punch his way into the championship race. I like what Joey Logano can do here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about him in depth later on in the betting portion of the show. But number 22 for 9,900, I don't mind paying up for him one bit here.
All right, Cody. Anyone else in the A's? You ready to move on to the B's? What you thinking on the board here now?
I mean, I can't pass up Kyle Busch still sitting on the board there. Got to throw him out there. He's 14-1 to win this week too. I feel like that's higher price than he should be. You have to go back. So he finished bad here in the fall, 29th, but I'm throwing that race out. It was the second to last race at Gibbs. He was over Gibbs at that point. Gibbs was over him, I think. Everybody was kind of checked out. You have to go all the way back to April of 2012 for him to finish worse than 19th on this track. They come here twice a year. So he is very consistent, consistently finishing up there. And in 14 of the last 24 races here, he's finished in the top 5 with 2 wins. He knows how to get it done on this track as well. And he's started the season off well, right? The fire has been relit under him. You can see it burning, and they're doing a good job over there at RCR. You go back to the Clash, right? If you want to compare this track, him and Austin Dillon both looked very, very good there, both landing on the podium. So I can't pass up Kyle Busch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I like Rowdy this week too. I was tempted to grab him, but I'll bring up this guy to start off the tier Bs, and because I want to hear discussion about this driver, and that's Chase Elliott back in the mountain. I'm going to put him in the Bs, and I think that he is very overvalued this week. He's been out of the car for 6 weeks. It's a heavy braking track. Maybe he feels like he's at 100%. I don't know. I feel like this isn't going to be his strongest race. I feel like he's definitely overvalued. I would put him almost a B- to a C at these prices, 9,300 on DraftKings, and he's pretty high on the odds too. I feel like this is not going to be your normal Chase Elliott for a couple of weeks. What do you guys think?
Man, I could see it both ways. I was thinking this morning, he was on the Pat McAfee show. I said, "Oh, he looks good. He looks good." He was ready to go. He loves Martinsville. We've seen him get it done at this track once before. He's always competitive at Martinsville, one of his more competitive tracks. But you are right, Elliot. It's a heavy braking track, but it's also a heavy shifting track, and that's what I worry about with Chase Elliott. How well can that leg hold up to everything that this race is going to throw at him? First race back in the car. And Cody, he did kind of mention on his interview on Pat McAfee earlier today that like he is a little bit hesitant. Like he knows it's going to be a tough race heading right back into these conditions.
Yeah, I'm so torn on this. I'm a huge Chase Elliott fan, full disclosure, but I could see it going both ways. Like I could see him come out, just dominate this race, win. Like NASCAR loves a good story, and that's like the perfect story, right? Like Golden Boy comes back, he's right into the playoffs just like that, dominates in his first race back. But on the other side of things, like it is a tough race. He hasn't been in the car for a few weeks. He's been doing simulator work and stuff, and I don't think that they would put him out here if they didn't fully believe that he was healthy enough to do it. But I don't know that necessarily means he's going to. He's still priced. I mean, he's a little cheaper than you probably would get him, later in the season or earlier this season before he got hurt. But it's still enough. And he gets that such popularity bump, right? Like everybody's going to want to play him. He's back. He's the big story. Everybody loves the guy. So I'm going to fade him, even though I don't like to do it, just because I think he will be so popular. And I have to see it before I'm going to invest in it again, especially at this high of odds. I mean, if he was coming in here like 50-1, then which of course they would never do because they would get killed. And so that's why they put him right there with the favorites. But with all these other guys that have been doing so well, been in the car and everything, I can't trust it enough, even though my heart wants to say, lay it all on him and he comes out and it's a great story. I'd love to see it if it happens, but I'm not going to put my money or my fantasy plays behind that just yet.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got that pro athlete mindset if he wants to be back in the car as soon as possible. I'm sure that he's capable of racing. Is he capable of running at 100% is what we'll have to see. I thought that he would have waited another week. We got an easier track next week. I think Dega's next week, right? So a little bit easier than Martinsville. There's not all the shifting. There's not all the braking, that sort of thing. But, hey.
I was so shocked. Because, you do have it's Dega, and then I think it's Dover, which there's not a ton of braking there.
Yeah, a little bit easier tracks to kind of ease his way back in. He's starting with one of the toughest ones, so.
Which makes me believe then maybe he really is that healed up and feeling that good. Like, if they're comfortable enough to not just wait when it should be so much easier the next few weeks, maybe he is.
I think it's just he wanted one more chance to win. I mean.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. I mean, and getting – stage points will be huge for him if he can get a stage win or two and start getting those playoff points.
At this point, it's going to be a win. I mean, he's far enough down in the standings. I doubt he'd be able to point his way in, but
but I mean, and playoff points too in the stages that
Yeah,
he'll
the
need
playoff
because he's
points
missed
are
out
good
on
ones. Yeah,
tons.
yeah.
So yeah,
I will say he is a value, and I will be playing him in Fantrax this week, most likely. 17 is the number for him over on Fantrax, so he's being undervalued coming back in.
I think
So,
that's the way to do it. They're realizing, hey, this guy's been out of the car. He's probably not at 100%. If that price, I like him. If you can find good odds, low odds on Chase.
well, and I've been I'll be honest, we'll talk more about it later, but I've been looking for matchups to play him in because I do think he might be a top 10 car this week, but there's nothing out there in the matchup or the group betting market. I think it's because he just announced it recently that he was coming back. But yeah, I would love to play him in more markets, but I just can't find it right now. So Elliot, great point on there. Where else? I guess it's back to me here. Man, this is tough. There's a lot of good drivers out there yet that we haven't spoke about. We got to talk about Ryan Blaney though. 9,500. I feel like you're getting a bit of a steal on the 12 car. I mean, every statistic you pull up that Joey Logano has been really good at this track, Blaney's either better than him or just as good as Joey Logano. So I'm going to go ahead and ride with the number 12 car. A little bit of value here, 9,500. It hasn't been a season to remember for the number 12 team, but I think maybe this could start them to get them going. And let's not forget Chase's last win here. Who'd he beat by a couple fractions of an inch? Ryan Blaney.
man, I love Ryan Blaney so much. We had like our own segment on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast last year because I was betting on him so much. He's burned me so many times, and I'm just kind of in fade mode of Ryan Blaney until I see him put it together. You go back and you look through, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I read this off on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Like you go through every race this year, and it's like got in a wreck, pit penalty, bad pit call, one good finish, second place at Phoenix, right? And then the next week it's another pit penalty, speeding on pit road, got wrecked, and it's just every week. We saw it last week, right? 8 laps to go, he's on the front row for the restart, gets wrecked again, and not even his fault. Having a good day, and like he's so good and he's consistent. Like you'll be watching the whole race and you're like, damn it, I should have played Blaney, and then it's just inevitable. Like, oh, there it goes. That's why I didn't play him, right? And man, I want to play him so badly, but until I see him start to figure things out and not continuously have all these problems, I'm having a hard time putting anything or trusting putting him in my lineups.
Totally get that, man. Totally get that. Who would you put in your lineup, so here, Cody, as we continue the B tier?
Kevin Harvick. He is Rod and I's favorite guy to talk about every week. I can't remember the last time we didn't have a bet on him during a race, and the last time we haven't mentioned him on our DFS show. He is just Mr. Consistent. A top 10, you're getting him at plus money yet again this week. It's absolutely crazy. He's so good each week, every week. I could go back and read statistics all day for what he's done at each one of these tracks. They're just amazing everywhere. But just look at his body of work this season. Even last week at Bristol Dirt, a track he hates. He's so glad he never has to go back there again. And 32nd for the first portion of the race. You look at the end of the day, he's sitting there in 9th place. Like, he's going to get you a good, solid finish almost every week. He's a guy that I can trust. And, again, with his price, I know over on DraftKings, he's down at 8,400. So they tried it one time. They priced him way up at Richmond. Things didn't go so great there for that. But he's always way too cheap and just like the free square, we like to call him for DFS.
Jeez, was a NASCAR going through someone's house right there? That was crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone else.
There must have been a bike coming by my place. I couldn't get to the mute button quickly enough.
No doubt. I was just concerned for someone's house, to be honest with you, that didn't just get ran through by a DUI. Yeah, I like that play there, Cody. Elliot, give us one from you because I'm jonesing right now to get to my next one. I'm jonesing for it.
I'm wondering if that's a little hint there. I don't think Eric Jones has run well enough.
No pun intended.
Okay. You really emphasized the Jones there. I wasn't sure. I'm gonna go with a bit of a reach here, and I'm gonna go with Chris Buescher. I think that he's at 7,800. He could be a value play here. RFK is running a little better. He won Bristol last year. He's good if you're bringing in the short flats, that sort of deal. It could be interesting, At least
who won Bristol last year?
Buescher won the Bristol Fall Race, didn't he? I didn't make that up.
He did. Yep. No, he did not.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought
you're
you were
good.
talking Mark.
I remember I was on vacation that week. I wasn't sure if I made that up. Had a few too many beers when you mentioned that. But no, I think Chris Buescher could be interesting here. He's also, a B minus for me, somewhere in between the B and C tier. But we'll bump him up to the B just because I still owe RFK a few after being so far down on Keselowski to start the year.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm jonesing to talk about Ross, boys. I think he belongs
I
in
should have
this
seen
tier.
that coming.
Yeah, this is the cheapest you're going to get him in a long time. 8,800 for Ross. You're not going to get a much better deal for a guy, especially one who finished top 5 in the fall race and in the spring race. Of course, one of those, a little bit of a Hail Mary to get into that top 5, of course. But this is a guy right now, he's still producing 38 fantasy points over on DraftKings per week. For the price of 8,800, you can do a lot worse than Ross Chastain. I wouldn't be surprised if Ross, pulls something out where he can get into that top 10, top 5 area. I don't think he has the speed necessarily on these short flats in this package right now to win it. But I'm jonesing for a little bit of Ross Chastain. Cody, how do you feel about Trackhouse in general, and who's your next pick as well?
Yeah, Ross is just so hard for me to trust. He's like on some weeks, he's off some weeks.
Yes.
Everybody hates him, so you're always concerned on a small track like this if he's gonna get wrecked.
Yeah,
I
if
don't
he and
know.
Denny are running together, I would expect.
Yeah, I'd watch out. Yeah, and then Denny will just not admit it after, and everything will be fine. But
he won the appeal, I think, didn't he? So
no, he lost his appeal.
Yeah.
Lost his appeal.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah,
that was like the day after the Hendrick one. I must.
Yeah, well, and then you had this past weekend where was it Priest basically said he was gonna wreck Larson and did it, and there was no penalty, and it's like,
yeah, what's that about? That's
make up your mind. Are they allowed to say it there?
Yeah,
well, I guess he didn't do it on a podcast, and he did it in the heat of the moment. After
in the heat of the moment, yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah. Like if Tony Stewart was still racing today, some of the stuff he said would have got him some more fines than he got.
Oh yeah, for sure. Next up for me, I got to take Alex Bowman off the board. He's probably sat on here longer than he should. Again, of the top 3 favorites, or of the top 6, it's 3 Hendricks and 3 Gibbs cars. Alex Bowman is in here. He's not quite to the level of his teammates necessarily up top there, but he is very consistent. He opened the season with 4 top 10s in a row with an 11th place the following week. So he has been very consistent. And again, it's just these Hendrick cars are fast. He's won here before. That's where he got his nickname, the Hack, right? He kind of backed into a win, as Kyle Busch will tell you. But he is very consistent. He can find himself in the top 10 all day. And again, like over on DraftKings, only at 8,200. Like when all 3 of his teammates are priced up so far, and they're such favorites to win this. I think he's 28-1 last time I looked on Barstool. Like it's very disrespectful, because I get that Bowman is the 4th guy in that stable, but the 4th guy in that stable is better than a lot of the top guys in a lot of the other stables. And most drivers would take that job. So Alex Bowman has to be the next guy for me.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly with Bowman. He's not to the level of his teammates right now. He and Blake Harris still working on trying to find the race-winning speed, but he's been so consistent this year that I think he's got to be a lock for your Bs right away, just week in, week out at this point.
And he's like, he should have a top 10 in every single race. He got screwed.
Yeah, when you look at it, he's gotten screwed out of the only ones he didn't finish.
Yeah. So. And of course, we're riding those tickets when that happens. Some fucking bullshit. But it's you, Elliot. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting excited again. I'm getting hot over my next pick already. I apologize.
Well, I was going to take Bowman off the board. Cody was smart enough to do that one pick earlier. I'm going toward the side of what have you done for me lately, and I'm going to put Austin Dillon. I think I'm going to slot him in the C tier. I don't think that he's quite in the B tier. I think I took Seth's pick too. But I'm putting him in the C tier. He ran, when you look at the statistics, it was one of the best races of his entire career last week at Bristol Dirt. I think it was his highest driver's rating. I think it was the only time he's ever run in the top 15 the whole race or something like that. I wish I had saved that tweet in front of me, but it put such a big block in my memory there that I had to remember that one, and we'll see if he can keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I love Austin Dillon this week. He's my little huckleberry. I'm going to continue to ride that train. Let's not forget, guys, who was competing at the end of the Busch Light Clash this year. It was Austin Dillon who was hunting him down. Yep. Just comes off a top 5. I'm going to talk about him more, but a little preview for you. I love Austin Dillon. I think personally he belongs in the B, but we'll keep him in the C's. also belong in the C's. It's Ty
Oh,
Dillon,
yes.
guys. Ty Dillon, 6,900. Nice on DraftKings. Also nice value as well. I'm loving what Ty Gibbs can do. And let's not forget that this is a track that he's won on in Xfinity, and his first ever race in Martinsville and Xfinity, he was a top 5 car. So I like what he can do. He's done it on shorts. He's done it on super speedways. He's done it on road course. He's done it on dirt. He's done a little bit of everything this year. So
the what have you done for me lately? I think he's had 4 top 10s in a row.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's still at plus 220 for a top 10.
Yeah. I like it a lot. I had in my notes last week that I didn't have the confidence to lay a top 10 bet on him, but I was looking for him in matchups and I just never found him. Mm-hmm. And then he went out and did another top 10. So yeah, I don't know.
On the NASCAR gambling podcast last week, I gave out Ty Gibbs for a top 10, and Rod had Michael McDowell for a top 10. And when the caution came out on the last lap, McDowell was in 10th and Gibbs was in 11th. And then we refreshed it about 10 minutes later, and they'd gone back and looked, and Gibbs had beat him before when the caution came out. So I cashed mine. Rod didn't get his. It was sad that we had to swap it, but I love Ty Gibbs. He was going to be my next pick, honestly. And again, it's kind of the same argument with Bowman. Like the 3 Gibbs cars are 3 of the 6 favorites, right? He's that 4th Gibbs car. Again, not to the level of his teammates yet, although he's going to be there sooner rather than later, likely, with the talent he has. But I'm really big on Ty Gibbs, so I love that play.
Okay. Cody, who else do you love here in this driver C tier? I feel like we are going down a little bit of another mini tier here. Those were like realistically, I feel like the top 12, 13, 14 drivers on my list this week. Who else do you have, though, who could maybe be a value here?
Yeah, Brad Keselowski would be next up for me. I am very high on Brad this weekend. I think that they're starting to get things figured out over at RFK. You brought it up with Busher a few minutes ago. Brad has a hell of a track history here. He has finished 16 times in the top 5. He's won twice here. Had a little bit of a rough go last year with RFK in his 2 starts. He was 36 in the spring, 17th in the fall, though, so much improved. But if you go back to 2020, he had 9 top 5s in 10 races from 2020 on backwards. And so I think that things are starting to look up a little bit for Brad. And I think that he's in the conversation to maybe even get a win this week as a long shot play.
Oh, that's a hot take.
I can't do it. And maybe I'm a little jaded from my call on him last week when he did absolutely nothing on the dirt, but a lot of people, you're not alone in the industry, are backing him this week. And I can't go back to those numbers because they're all Penske numbers. And he was terrible here last year. Busher hasn't been much better in RFK equipment. And he was dog shit last week. Like, he was dog shit. Like, the dude was literally getting passed by freaking Cody Ware's replacement.
It's dirt. You can't.
But he
sucked at the road course too. You just got to expect those places to be bad.
He was 11th at Bristol Dirt in 2022. So I liked him. I'm just scared off of him right now. So I played him everywhere last week, hoping for a better performance at 7,700. No way I'm paying for him. I'll pay down any day. But Cody, I respect the take. I can't do it, man. I'm heartbroken.
I think he's live top 10 this week for sure. I really think we're going to see a good solid run. I don't know that he will win. If he doesn't win this week, he is going to win next week at Talladega. You can say you heard it here first, because I'm already going to be on that because I think that he's got it coming. He's getting so close. He needs to get that first win as a driver owner, and I think we're almost there.
Okay. Elliot, you got something that's not going to break my heart here?
Yeah, so I agree with Brad. Dega, I'm liking him. Here, I'm not liking him so much. And I get the past numbers are there, but thankfully, 2020 was a long time ago. So I don't think any of us want to go back to 2020 for a lot of reasons.
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no. Jeez. How about that? That's crazy. We won, though. We won. We're good.
Thankfully, a long time ago. All right, so I don't really know why this guy hasn't been picked yet. I guess he just hasn't shown a lot of Martinsville. I got to take Tyler Reddick off the board here. I mean, he's at 9,100. He started to heat up a little bit. Not super duper spectacular at the short tracks here, but I think that he is starting to heat up. Obviously had that win at Coda. He's interesting here, but no more interesting than the C tier.
I think it shows a lot that he stayed on the board this long. I think that almost tells you everything you need to know. He proved it a couple weeks ago at Richmond. I was on him because I was like, wow, his prices are just ridiculous. Like, I know he has bad history, but he's been doing so well in this 45 car. Like, he was coming off of winning at Cody, I think, that week, and he just didn't show up. So I think he proved to me there that if he doesn't have good track history there already, that I think he's going to continue to struggle. So I'm very, very much off of Reddick this week. And I think the fact that he stayed on the board this long with some of these other guys that went ahead of him kind of proves that point.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Cody there. It's just too high of a price for me this week, but I understand the call out there, Elliot. I'm going to go Ryan Preece. I think you're once again getting a value on this number 41 car, guys. He's been really consistent as of late, averaging just over 22 DraftKings points per week, and you're getting him at a price of $7,400 this week. Finally starting to move up in Fantrax pricing a little bit, so that's good as well. But overall, I mean, this was a guy who was pretty scary fast at Phoenix. He was pretty scary fast at the Clash at times. So he's going to be someone that I'm going to continue to ride with here this week. I think Ryan Preece is going to have himself a day here. And let's not forget, for a guy who hasn't raced a ton of cup in his career, 7 starts here, three top 20 finishes. So he's had some experience where I feel comfortable with him compared to some of these other cars, some of the more newer drivers here. Cody, any thoughts on just SHR as a whole and who your next pick is as well?
Yeah, SHR is very hard for me to trust outside of Kevin Harvick. Like, Kevin Harvick has all my faith and trust always, but outside of them, it's just, they're so inconsistent. I mean, you go back to the beginning of the season and Chase Briscoe was literally within 4 spots of BJ McLeod for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and not like because he had problems or because he wrecked or like he just was that slow. They've been inconsistent. We did see flashes from Preece. You go back to the Clash, right? There was a time where it looked like maybe he could win that race before he had an issue. SHR's overall, they're just hard to trust for me outside of Harvick. Harvick is very much trustable, and I have no problem there. It almost seems like he's on a different team. It's kind of crazy there, but these other guys are just harder for me to trust. I was on Briscoe last week to win. I had him at the top 5 at plus money, so he did cash that for me, but I don't love him coming in this week. And then Preece, again, I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be telling, I think, to see what they do this week, but we'll see.
Yeah, with SHR, just so hard to trust. And I feel like it feels like Harvick's on a different team because both he and Rodney Childers are far more experienced.
Yes.
Almirola is Almirola. At this point, that's just what he is.
Yeah.
Preece and Briscoe, still learning, still getting up there. I think eventually they'll be better drivers. It's just with SHR, it's not quite there. It's got to be the driver that has the cars running up front, not the cars right now. And Harvick's the only guy that can pull that off consistently.
Jeez, way to shit on old Ryan Preece. He was having a day. He already got shit on earlier in the program.
He's the number 2 SHR guy. I completely agree with that in these tiers. It's just Harvick is on such another level with that Stewart-Haas team.
My turn again?
Yes.
I will go with Austin Cindric next. He's been slowly and steadily like improving and just quietly. Like it's not very flashy. He's not leading a ton of laps or anything, but consistently getting better and better finishes. He actually finished 11th here last spring in his very first start. And he was running in both stages too. I mean, 9th and 8th in stage 1 and stage 2. Had a rough time in the fall when he came back and he finished 26th. But it's, the last 2 weeks you kind of got to throw out. They were rough for Cindric, but prior to that, he's been having some decent, solid runs, some top 10s, some top 15s. And so I think that for where you're getting him at 6,800, Austin Cindric is not a bad value there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Penske is great at this track. And if it can, we haven't seen it from Austin Cindric on the short tracks and the intermediate tracks yet. And that's what I think we're waiting to see. He's shown it on the road course. He's shown it on the super speedways. Maybe this is a chance for him to show us a little something. I'm optimistic, but I don't have the balls to play him this week here. Elliot, who do you have to either round out the C's or start the D tier?
Yeah, I was thinking about going with Cindric. He has shown a little bit of improvement. I still need to see more from him to be confident. I'm going to go with kind of an easy cop-out again for the season, put Suarez on the board here. Trackhouse has been fine here. He's not super exciting here. 8,000 is probably too high of a price to pay, but the cars are good enough. You kind of have to think about it,
Yeah. I think we need like a buzzer, Elliot, because like I want to do like something that's like leverage play of the week, because this is like my leverage play of the week. Like talk about
It's the leverage play of the week.
there we
There
go.
we go.
Appreciate that. So this is the leverage play of the week. Who's someone no one's going to be on this week? Because like that's something you kind of have to take into account with these DFS or Fantrax, whatever fantasy platform you're playing on. Who's no one else is going to be on? It's Bubba Wallace, guys. 7,100 for Bubba Wallace. He belongs in the C tier here. I know like no one thinks about Bubba Wallace being good on these types of tracks. However, he got 9th in this very race last season, or in the fall race, and then 16th in the spring race. So I think Bubba Wallace is going to be a top 15 car. He's shown some speed on these short tracks so far this season. So I think you can do a lot worse at that price tag. 7,100. No one else is going to be on him. I think it's a good little leverage play here. Bubba Wallace, leverage play of the week.
That's not terrible. Bubba was another guy I was thinking of in the C tier. Again, he doesn't excite me a whole lot. Those numbers are better than what I thought he did last year. So, leverage play of the week.
There
Yes,
you go.
sir.
All right, I'll kick off the D tier here, and this might be a bit of a reach, but I feel like there's a lot of value here. I'm going to take Todd Gilliland at only 5,500. I think that he's a guy that I find a very hard time ever playing anything on. I don't know why, but he's always one of those guys I look at and I'm like, there's some VAT, but I don't want to do it. But I mean, this is 4 races in a row where he's finished inside the top 15, all different styles of tracks. I mean, dirt, you got Richmond, you got a road course, you had Atlanta the week before that. And so it just, you have to give the guy a shout out. He's been getting it done. And I mean, he's driving for his seat at this point. Like he's already lost some seat time in that car this year and has had to go down to the Rick Ware cars to get his full season in. So he's driving for his life. His crew chief has been very ballsy, making the calls to keep them out and the strategy stuff. And it's been working. And so I think all the way down here at 5,500, you look at the guys on DraftKings that are down there around him, and I don't want to touch many of them, but Gilliland has been getting you top 15 results 4 weeks in a row. So I think that he deserves that little bump up for this week.
I'm with it, man. I'm with it. I actually was thinking about Todd Gilliland myself. We have tried to fade him a couple times here, and it hasn't worked in some matchups and some group betting. So, yeah, Todd Gilliland, man, I was not expecting him to have the run here the last couple weeks he has, but love the play there. Elliot, who else you got for the Ds?
I think that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. could be a value play here. I think that he's,
I love it.
Stenhouse, I mean, I don't have his stats right in front of me. He just kind of stood out to me with these guys left on the board. We were talking about SHR. We don't know about them. Kolek hasn't stood up. We'll get to some of these other guys later. But Stenhouse at 6,000, I think that's not terrible value for a D.
He has 2 top 10s here in his career as well. Like he's not terrible at Bristol. He's shown some speed on these different short tracks so far this season as well. I like that play a lot there, Elliot. I also have to throw him out just because we try to talk about most of these drivers, and I shade on Eric Almirola every single week. The guy's got 7 top 10s here, though. He's like out. He's one of those guys you're seeing on every book in a lot of matchups right now. And the more I dug into, and I make a lot of money off fading Almirola. I think we all do in these head-to-head markets. However, he has a good track record here. He was fast here last season as well. So I can't fade Almirola for the price tag you're getting him at 7,200. I think I still rather play Bubba at 7,100. Just been a little better, but a little more consistent this season. But I don't expect a lot of Almirola love this week either. So I'll ride with the number 10 car for once. I guess I'm on a little SHR island, which not a sexy island, but I am there. Definitely like the kind of that 3-star resort that you get into. You found the couponing on Groupon. Did not work out, but good time nonetheless here. Cody, back to you, my friend.
The SHR Island is not getting a lot of tourism right now. That's true.
No.
I think, and Chase Briscoe's still sitting out there, but man, at 8,600, like he's just way too expensive for me to want to touch. We're getting into slim pickings here. Looked at Michael McDowell, but he has got a very bad track record of Martinsville. So I think AJ Allmendinger is going to be a guy I'm going to take. He's actually got some pretty solid results here in the past. Last season, 23rd and 24th. But if you go back to 2018 with JTG, he finished 8th and 14th He had a sixth place in 2017, a second in 2016, again in the JTG car. It's not, I mean, I don't expect results like that from him this week, but I think he could be good enough. If we do get into a situation where we end up with the wet weather package on Sunday, it's not necessarily looking like it could get there, but if it does, I think that it could play in the favor of a guy like this as well. So if that ends up coming into play, that Allmendinger could be bumped up even more because of that.
Yeah, I don't know that NASCAR is anywhere near confident enough to run it in race condition, but yeah, you're right. If pigs fly and we do run it this weekend, that's not a bad idea. All right, yeah, it really is slim pickings here. I don't think anybody that we haven't ranked yet is even going to finish on the lead lap. You know, Martinsville is real tough for guys that are running near the back to stay consistent. I guess I'll give a shout out to the Spire guys. You know, Corey LaJoy had a hot start. I think LaJoy deserves to be in the E tier just because he's at a low price. Hot start, cooled down a little bit, but those are weirder tracks. On more traditional tracks, we've seen LaJoy in the top 30. Do I think he finishes in the top 30 this week? Probably not. Do I think that he's got a better chance than most of these other guys? I do. And I will also give a shout out to Ty Dillon. I'm not putting him on the board. Absolutely not putting him on the board. But 21st at Bristol Dirt, and he actually ran well enough that I saw him on my TV screen for a few minutes. Shout out to Ty Dillon.
Yeah, it was a crew chief thing. We didn't need to pit at Bristol Dirt, apparently, is what we learned. And then Larson just pits and doesn't take tires. That's a whole different.
Ty Dillon ran well at Bristol Dirt in the 42 car the previous year. So shout out to him existing.
Yes.
He's going to go back to not existing this week.
I would rather leave a spot empty than play Ty Dillon.
Right. Yeah. That's why I said we're not putting him on the board.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just going to throw Briscoe out here. I do like his track record at this track, to be honest, but it's just a bad price that I'm not willing to pay. I'm with you on LaJoy. Guy's priced at $5,000. I mean, what are we doing? 33 DraftKings points per game. He has an 18th place finish here. He's not dog shit. I mean, he's not great here either, but that's like honestly everyone I'm willing to put on this board, if I'm being honest with you guys. I mean, guess we can give a little bit of love to Zane, right? Like, how do you feel about Zane Smith, and what do you think about this team overall that he's taking over, Corey? Obviously, not a historically great number 51 car.
Right. And we don't know if he'll be in the car past this week. You know, obviously there's been a driver change there. We won't get into that. But Zane Smith is running it this weekend. And Cody, I guess I'll let you talk about it first before I go on my spiel with these other bottom feeders here.
Yeah, I think that it's tough because we know that car sucks. It's not great. But you put Zane Smith and Cody Ware next to each other, and Zane Smith times 1,000 is much better driver, obviously, right? And so I think that there is some value for the price you're getting him at. I mean, if you're, and really he's not even all the way at the bottom, but if you need to squeeze somebody in there, he's not a bad play.
He's got more upside than a lot of these bottom feeders.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we've seen him run very well. He's very limited in his Cup Series starts so far, but he filled in for Brad Keselowski last season on short notice, had a great run. Obviously, that car's a lot better, but I think that if I was him, if I was Ford, the way that I would be looking at it is, like, this is a perfect time for you to get seat time, track time. Potentially we see him in the 4 car next year, or like he's kind of the big guy on Ford's radar, right? And so
yes.
I think that might actually play into his favor because I don't think he'll be pushing it too hard. I think he's going to go out there, hit his marks, run a good solid race, focus on getting the experience. And in the process of that might actually keep him more out of trouble than anything and end up with a solid day, solid enough at this price for it to be worth mentioning him.
Yeah. I don't mind that at all, Cody. And Elliot, before you give us the rundown, I do think Harrison Burton belongs on this board. All right. 12th place finish in the fall. I mean, it was one of his better tracks last season. No one's going to play him at 5,500. I'm okay. 5,700, excuse me. I'm okay with Harrison Burton. In some of these like season-long leagues, like on Fan Tracks, you have to use him pretty much at some point. So this is one of those tracks. I don't mind pulling the trigger on Harrison Burton for my last driver. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out. I know it's not a sexy play, but I do like little Harrison this week.
That's why he's in the E tier. He's not a sexy play. You know, he's one of those guys still trying to get it together. I feel the same about Justin Haley. I mean, he's not worth throwing up there. A colleague. It's the same sort of thing. Allmendinger's got the experience. That's why he's up there. That's why Justin Haley's not.
Justin Haley's so bad at this track in Cup. Like I will look for any excuse to play Justin Haley in a DraftKings lineup. I love playing Justin Haley in a DraftKings lineup. He's always a great leverage play down at the bottom of the board. But this week, I just can't get behind it. at 6,400. There's other guys. I'll play Ricky at 6,000. I'll play Zane at 5,800. I'll play Harrison before I'll play Justin Haley this week, unfortunately.
Yeah, and some of these other guys, the 15 car is JJ Yaley. If you ever have the 15 car in one of your lineups, you've made a terrible mistake.
I did that last week.
We were talking about
that. They had a dirt specialist in that car, though. Yeah, Yaley was a dirt specialist.
He
done well last week. So I guess I did.
He looked great. He looked great in the qualifying. Yeah.
On a track that's not dirt, if you ever have the 15 car in your lineup, you've made a mistake. Even with Riley Herbst at Daytona, he probably was not worth playing.
Even on dirt, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Even on dirt, you made a mistake. I promise you that. Looking at my lineups last week, so
I will say Eric Jones too is still on the board.
Right, and it's I was going to mention legacy that neither of those guys are on the board. They both have upside. They both have talent. The team just has not gotten it together this year at all.
It's been rough. Eric Jones does have a decent record. If looking back here. 18th and 13th last year, but we saw Petty GMS at the time performing well then, and like legacy has just been so bad this season. It's been a big time struggle for them for as impressive as that 43 car was last year.
I'm glad I couldn't find any team bets before the season on legacy, because I definitely would have pounded the over, because I was all about them coming into the season. They have been dog shit. So I think Eric Jones belongs in the E tier just because he is a guy like among boys here. But sorry. That's where I am, I guess.
That's fair. Yeah. And, Michael McDowell, we talked about him a bit. I kind of view him as Eric Almirola light a lot of the times. Once in a while, good for a good run. Most of the time, good for 20.
He was ripping 360s last week. Credit to him on that. I would say that
was impressive. He did it multiple times.
Yeah.
And then the last guy we need to talk about, it's Anthony Alfredo in the 78 this week rather than BJ McLeod. Driver with a little more upside there. But again, kind of like the 15 most weeks. If you ever have the 78 in your lineup, you've made a terrible mistake.
Yeah, I kind of almost rather play BJ sometimes than the old Alfredo monster, if I'm being honest, at least at super speedways.
Yeah, fast pasta, maybe not so fast at Martinsville, I don't think. But all right, there we go. My favorite part about the tire tiers, we give you at least a sentence on every driver in the field, even if it's to say, don't play him at all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Elliot, let's go ahead and shift over, though. We got a little bit of betting cards to get through here.
Let's roll with the parking garage props. Alrighty, so I guess we'll start off with outrights probably. The outrights, top threes, top fives, top tens, all that fun stuff. Who's going to finish out front?
So, Cody, before we get into this, what was your overall thoughts coming into this race? I was looking for a bounce back. I was looking for a little pick-me-up, a little sweetener, a little something I can get behind. And it was a tough week kind of looking through some of these books. Top 10 markets are kind of dog shit all the way around. The outrights, obviously the top of the board kind of has to be skewed a little bit, but it was tough. What did you kind of think about all of that before we get to outrights?
Yeah, I think that there's a few I found quickly that I loved, but that was short-lived. And then it was like, there's not much left. So I kind of grabbed a couple of things that I really liked. And then it was like, you're just kind of poking around like, nothing here is too crazy. You got a lot as far as like odds to win. I mean, pretty top heavy here. And really, you can make a case for the top 8-10 guys in this to come out and dominate the day. Like, so it's tough to pick your poison and which guy you're going to ride with. Maybe we'll learn a little bit from practice. It's not a very long practice. Maybe starting positions will influence some stuff later in the week. But it's a up and down week as far as what the books are offering, I would say.
Yeah, and kind of my thought process coming into this as well is if I am taking someone pre-practice and qualifying, and I am very interested in seeing that this weekend, it is on values that I don't think are going to be there after that practice and qualifying. Kyle Larson being the first one, plus 850. You don't get that number on Kyle Larson a lot. And kind of going back to the human side of things, he's going to be mad. He's going to be fired up coming into this one. Led 68 laps in the fall, finished second that race. Won Richmond, finished fourth at Phoenix this season, top 3 speeds on both of those short flats so far this season, and top 5 at the Clash as well. And the one thing I'm going to harp on is the winner of this race has come from within the top 10, 74% of the time. So you're looking for a guy who is going to be up towards the front, who's going to qualify well. Well, best average start position of the season so far in NASCAR. Kyle Larson, 7.0, 2 poles, 1. I think he could pull this one. I think he's at least going to be in the top 10, and I think that's where I'm going to put my money here. Pre-P's and Q's, Elliot.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Any other outrights and such you guys want to go with? Normally, I'm the guy who picks the matchups, all that stuff. I like the weird stuff. You guys go with the basic stuff,
Yeah, well, I would say to your point of wanting to get somebody before they come out and shine, it's Kyle Busch, like 14-1 right now. If he comes out and he's the fastest car in practice, or he sets it on the pole, those odds are going to be cut in half probably for him. So I feel like he's at 14-1, you're getting good value early on. Whereas if he is impressive, that's going to drop a lot. If some of these guys at the very, very top, like a William Byron comes out and he's the fastest guy, like I think they kind of expected that, right? And so I don't think it'll cut maybe a little bit, but not as much. But you get a little farther down, and a guy like Kyle Busch that they know can get it done does come out and looks really good. We saw it at Coda, right? Reddick was 10-1 early in the week. And then by the time after practice and qualifying, it was like plus 350 or something ridiculous. Like it dropped so much. And so I think that kind of this is the range, like you said, with Larson, especially because you don't get him even at this number very often. And then a guy like Kyle Busch at this where it could shift a lot because of practice and qualifying.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of following that same basic measure, but I'm going to go over to Joey Logano. I just like what Logano's been laying out there. I think it's going to be a little bit of a bounce back week after some rough trouble there on the dirt. But listen, I talked about how average starting position is a big deal for me. Who's the second best so far this season outside of Kyle Larson? Well, it's Joey Logano, guys. 8.6 average starting position, 2 poles for him. And he also has the most poles among active drivers here at Martinsville with 5. So I think maybe I'm going to take my shot on him in qualifying, and at plus 1,200 at Barstool and plus 150 for a top 5. I like him in both those aspects here. Phoenix, he was 11th. Richmond, he was 7th. So I think Joey Logano is someone I'm going to be rostering in DFS, and I'm also going to be putting a little bet on him as well for the outright, for the pole position, and for the top 5 as well. I'm back on the number 22 train this week.
Can't complain about that.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Yeah.
All righty, where should we go next here?
Let's go ahead. Let's go to placement props. And again, I think the market was kind of juiced this week. I wasn't in love with it. I do have a couple here for the placement props, but Cody, I want to hear what you have, whether that's a top 3, a top 5, top 10, or one of those combo bets.
Yeah, so I'm looking to see if these have changed at all quickly. But Kevin Harvick, the first guy that jumps off the board again, he's basically when odds drop, he's the first guy I go and look and see where his price is on everything. At Caesars, he was plus 110 rather to get a top 10 finish here. And so that jumped off to me right away. For some reason, Caesars actually doesn't have top 10s up at the moment. So I don't know what the deal is with that. But if you can find him, I mean, even at a minus 110, I would take it. But especially if you're finding him still at plus money, Kevin Harvick is a no-brainer for a top 10 just about any week for me. Looks like he's plus 110 over on Barstool right now still. So, yeah, that's definitely a bet I would take.
Yeah, I was just about to say plus 110 at Barstool. You might actually get me on that one now. I haven't bet Kevin Harvick a lot outside of Phoenix this year with the outright, which, another heartbreaker. Talk about him. I like that one. I'm going to go with a little bit of a long shot for this one. And it's a guy I put on the thumbnail this week because I wanted to talk about him, and it's Austin Dillon. Finished 3rd in this race last year, wrecked out of the other race, but fastest speed late in the run and 4th best in total speed ranking in that race as well. So he had a really, really good one. We talked about the Busch Light class earlier this episode. He was fast there, one of the top ones there. 3 top 5s here in his career. So it's not like he's terrible at running at Martinsville. It's just normally when he gets in the top 10, he also has a top 5 car. So I like him a lot. Average finish of 10th here in his last 3 races, not counting that fall one when he was wrecked out of it. So I'm going to go back to Austin Dillon plus 210 on Barstool right now. Cody, any thoughts? You have any balls to throw Austin Dillon out there? Anyone else here in the top 10 market?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't know that I'm totally in love with it. He's been inconsistent to start this season, which has been a little troublesome.
Certainly. But
you go back and you look at the Clash, right? Again, probably the most comparable track, especially this year that we've been on. And he was very fast there. He's 2nd running down Truex at the end there. And so I think that he's definitely not a bad play, especially at that price. I also like Ty Gibbs. He's at plus 210 still for a top 10 over on Barstool. Again, he's done it 4 weeks in a row, and it's been all types of different tracks. I think he's uberly talented. Obviously, they're a bit high. The books are high on Gibbs cars this week, having 3 of them in that top 6 mix where they're all, a few points off of each other. And so I think that Ty Gibbs could get it done again. Finished 19th here in the fall in his first start in the Cup Series here. He won the fall Xfinity race, 8th in the spring. And then I think you mentioned it earlier, but in 2021 and only his 3rd Xfinity Series start, he was 4th place at this track, which was very impressive. And so I think that the Ty Gibbs can I'm going to keep riding his top 10 train, something on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast we've been on for a couple of weeks here, and it keeps paying off. So why quit if it's not broken, right?
Yeah, and I will say I really like the long shots this week in the outright department, just for little sprinkles. But Ty Gibbs plus 60 to 1. I think that's a very fine number. Austin Dillon 60 to 1. I'm definitely gonna be sprinkling that as well. And Ryan Preece is 60 to 1. So like they are intriguing a little bit. I'm not saying get behind all of those, but maybe pick one of those that you want to do just a little bit of a sprinkle, because that's still going to be a nice return no matter what you put on that. Elliot, any thoughts about that 60 to 1 market there?
Well, we know that Ty Gibbs will move somebody out of the way to win a race in Martinsville. We saw that last fall.
Oh.
Even if it's his teammate.
Yeah, we know he'll do that. And, it was right after, I forget when this was, but probably right before this top 10 streak, I had a big spiel on Ty Gibbs. I'm off him at that point, 5 or 6 weeks ago. I was totally off of him. I was like, I need to see something from this kid. He's in a Gibbs car. He hasn't really done much. Now 4 top 10s in a row, 3 ninth place in a row even. We're tier top 10, but hey, it doesn't matter. Top 10 is top 10. Doesn't matter whether you're 2nd or 10th. If you ain't first, you're last, right? So still would pay out for the top 10 bet. The 60 to 1 is interesting. I don't love any of those guys there, but if you want to sprinkle in a long shot, that's not terrible.
I'll round us out here in the placement props with Chris Bell, top 5 plus 130. Most top 5s in NASCAR with 5. The guy's been electric. 1 here in the fall race, 4th at Richmond, 6th at Phoenix, top 4 speed in both. Not a sexy bet, but I think Chris Bell is going to be good once again here. I'm going to go with the plus top 5.
Yeah, I love this one. I gave this out as well on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, and he is a short, flat track guy. He's always good at these types of tracks. The New Hampshires, he did decent at the Clash to start the season. He's got the momentum behind him right now. So getting him at plus money, I thought was kind of a steal for being a top 5 finish. So I really like that one as well.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, if you've just bet him top 5 every single week, you've made profit. So let's continue to do that here, heading into Martinsville. Elliot, I want to throw it over to you as we get into the head-to-heads, group specials, anything you're seeing out there that maybe we can take advantage of that the average NASCAR gambler will not.
Alrighty, so my favorite matchup of the week that I found, again, we talked about not loving the books. There wasn't a whole lot in the matchups I really loved, but I see this one, Kyle Busch versus Ryan Blaney on Caesars, where Rowdy is plus 100 and Blaney is minus 130.
That one's tough.
I'm liking Rowdy here. Rowdy at plus money over a guy like Blaney, especially since he's been bad luck Blaney this year. We'll take Rowdy at plus money, I think.
Man, Rowdy's just had kind of a cold streak, though. It's so hard. I've wanted to get behind Rowdy. I think I've just been off of him by about a week, the last couple of weeks. So I don't blame you there. Anything else in that market that you're seeing, Elliot, that maybe we should take a gander at?
We'll take a look at some top manufacturers real quick. I was talking about how I think Chase Elliott is overvalued. He's the joint favorite with Byron for the top Chevrolet. I don't know that I love either of these guys here. You got Larson at plus 230. If you want to stick with Rowdy, it's Kyle Busch at plus 550. Chastain plus 650. Bowman plus 850. Your boy Austin Dillon plus 1800 for top Chevy. That could be an interesting one.
I actually did see that a little bit earlier. I'm not gonna lie. I was tempted by it, but I think I don't want to be a week late on Austin Dillon. So I understand that call there. Who's in the Toyota camp? Who's leading that? We still got Chris Bell, definitely the favorite.
Bell and Truex are both plus 210. Hamlin plus 230. Reddick plus 950. Bubba plus 1200. Ty Gibbs plus 1600 might be the one that I like here, though. I think that you guys are convincing me on this Ty Gibbs train. Again, another long shot, but
I don't see a better value. Like, I don't want to take Bell or Hamlin at that number because you're pretty much pinning those two against each other. So I understand that. Any thoughts on any of these top manufacturers here, Cody?
Toyota is my favorite one to bet because there's only 6 in the field. So
Yep.
with Chevrolet, it's so hard because even
Yeah.
if you beat some of the other top guys, then a guy like Austin Dillon sneaks in there and steals it from you or something. And like with the Toyota camp, you only have to beat 5 other guys. They're all very much on fairly level playing field as far as the equipment they have. It's basically 6 Joe Gibbs cars is how I view it. And so I think that you can always find value on one of the lower guys when it comes to the Toyota side of things, just because it's such a small group they have to beat. It's almost like getting a guy at 16-1 to win one of these group bets. I mean, because there's only 6 guys in there. So that's Toyota is the one I like to target more than the others, just for that reason alone.
Yeah, I totally makes sense, man. Now that you say that, like that number with Ty Gibbs does feel like a very fair number.
And
at
I mean,
15.
again, like 3 of those Gibbs cars are expected to be some of the top 6 guys, and they're likely going to have a good day. So don't go crazy on it. But if they have some issues, or there's all kinds of things, and Gibbs just runs well, he gets in the top 10. We've seen Denny Hamlin speed on pit road a number of times. Other guys have problems, tires and stuff. It's so much easier to hit that type of bet when there's only 6 of them compared to 100 Chevys out there, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's the same with Ford too. They're just so crowded. You got Blaney plus 220, then Logano just below him plus 240, Keselowski plus 5, Harvick plus 550, then it's Briscoe plus 900, Priest 1100, Buescher 1300, and then you go down. Then you got Almirola. Anybody below him is not worth it.
Yeah. Every once in a while, Ford will be very top heavy, where it's like Logano and Blaney are like top of the board, and then like it's 10-1 on like Harvick and Keselowski. When we get into that range, I like to take those guys because if the 2 Penske guys have an issue, they could easily get it. And Harvick's going to be in the top 10 every week, it, right? So he can get it done. But yeah, with the price that way this week, the Ford group doesn't excite me at all.
Right.
Yeah. One that I think maybe might excite you guys, it excited me. I was over on Caesars. They've been a little dry lately too, outside of qualifying, so I haven't put a lot over there as of late. However, I like the under 11.5 card number on Caesars plus 105. Under 11.5 here, you're going to get Chase, you're going to get Denny, you're going to get Larson, you're going to get Rowdy, my little Austin Dillon Huckleberry, you're going to get him as well. Cindric, Brad, Almirola. But I really like Chase, Denny, Larson, Rowdy. Like that's a good 4-pack plus a little bit of wild card action in there as well. At plus money, I'm willing to take that. The only ones I'm really concerned that may defy this. Oh, plus you're getting your guy Harvick. Sorry to exclude Harvick as well. But the only guy that I think like could upset this is Chris Bell. I think he could win this race. I think Byron could win this race. But outside of those 20 and 24 cars, I'm not scared. I think this is one I really like. Elliot, how do you feel about this little under 11.5 pack?
Hey, don't leave Brad Keselowski out of that under group.
Yeah, I'm fading Brad this week, buddy.
That's not bad. I pulled that bet from Barstool as well. What'd you say the number was on that at Caesars?
Plus 105 here.
All right, I got a little better for you. Car number race winner under 9.5 is at plus 172.
I saw that.
But then you're losing out on Denny.
That's you're
losing Denny, but you're keeping a lot of the favorites.
I'd rather have Denny in there.
But hey, you're cutting out Denny for a little bit more plus there. And also, this doesn't have Denny either, but over 19.5 is at plus 156, and you're getting some fairly good drivers there too.
Can't do it. There's too much loaded at the bottom. It's too. That's
fair. That's fair.
But I totally understand even cutting down to the plus 9.5 or whatever you call it out there, because I saw that earlier too, and that's initially I said, oh, that's interesting, and then I saw 11.5 still. So that's gonna be my little fun one for the week. Well, what else do you have for us, Cody, in the specials or the head-to-head group market that we haven't touched on so far, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, you stole my head-to-head with the Kyle Busch over Ryan Blaney. Again, like just his inability to finish these races has been the biggest thing. Man, I love to throw out different weird random props and stuff, but going back to how the books are this week, I haven't found a ton of stuff that I
didn't find a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
One that I see on Barstool here, any driver to win both stage 1 and 2 and win the race, plus 700. Now, I know that didn't happen last year, even though they split it 2 different ways. But if it's another really top-heavy race, the right guy stays out front at the right time, maybe worth a shot. But this one is probably sometimes I put a little more into the specials in the thought process than I would some of the long shot outrights. I think I'd probably take some long shot outrights over this, but
Yeah.
it'll still be interesting.
Yeah. Last one I'm going to throw out for the night is I'm going back to Austin Dillon here. Minus 115 a piece. I believe this is over on Barstool against Chris Buescher. I've already talked at just exhaustion tonight how high I am on Austin Dillon this week. Buescher's just been okay on short track so far this season. Average finish of 22.5. A no-show here last year at Bristol, really. Or Martinsville, excuse me. So I'm going to attack Buescher. I'm fading just RFK, I guess, in general this week. Did me dirty last week. I think they're continue to do people dirty. I'm going to take Austin Dillon head-to-head with him. They're both at 115, though. So I guess call your shot. I'm on the AD side this week, boys.
I did find one I like over here on Caesars. They've got a veteran drivers parlay boost.
I saw this.
Kyle Busch wins.
Sick.
Kyle Busch wins the truck race. Denny Hamlin wins the cup race. Rod and I talked about this on the truck episode. You know, Kyle Busch is like a prohibitive favorite. We didn't know if we really felt comfortable betting on him at plus 110. But
how about that? Yeah.
Getting him worked in here. And then I already gave out Denny Hamlin at 7-1 as well as my of the favorites, the guy that I like the most. So getting both of those, I mean, the Kyle Busch one, it's not a for sure thing, but it's Max Verstappen of the F1, right? Like there's a pretty good chance he wins this race. And so then that boosts you to Denny up to 17-1 after that. So yeah, I think that'd be my fun bet of the week for sure. I really, really like that one.
But you want some more plus money on Hamlin? There's one on Caesars. Either Hamlin or Truex winning is a plus 300.
See, I have a policy. I don't allow myself to bet on Martin Truex until I see him prove differently.
And there's two more here I'll throw out there, not for necessarily big money or big chances. Logano and Kyle Busch both in the top 3. Again, that'd be tough. That's why it's plus 2,000. That's a big time long shot.
Yeah, I saw that one. I wish that was like even a plus 5, and they could have docked that down more. And I think
like top 5 for a plus, 850 or something would have been
hitting
nice.
2 of the top 3 is so tough, though. That's
this one I like more. This is my last one. Bowman and Harvick both in the top 10 at plus 360. I think they're of the guys who should be in the top 10 who have routinely been consistent in the top 10. I think Bowman and Harvick are probably 2 of your top 4 in terms of consistent running right now. So plus money for that is not bad.
I would not take this one, but I think this helps my Brad Keselowski case. They've got all to finish in the top 5. It's Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Brad Keselowski, and it's only plus 1,400.
What?
Yes. That should be like 50-1 or something.
That's gross.
Way up. Yeah.
That's gross.
I think that's them leaning in on the fact that they like Brad Keselowski this weekend too.
Yeah. Not totally off kilter with that one.
God, I've heard enough about Brad Keselowski for a week. Elliot, I think we go ahead and I think we'll close this shop down. For Elliot and I, you can find us here at In Between Media. Subscribe to the channel. Come back and hang out with us again if you haven't already. We got content coming out for you guys left and right between here and our website. Elliot's columns up on the site every few weeks as well. We got the Fantasy Football Podcast on Tuesday, our DFS and betting PGA Tour show on Tuesday as well. And then here on the Backroad. Cody, thanks so much for joining us, man. How can we best support you moving forward for the rest of the 2023 NASCAR season, my friend?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, guys. Love it. Always have a good time with you. You can follow me on Twitter at Husker_Zeeb. I got a ton of work going on over there. Listen to the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Of course, I co-host that with Rod Villagomez, who's generally on here. We also host the F1 Gambling Podcast. I have a USFL championship article out right now. Got some NFL draft stuff coming out as well soon over on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. So, yeah, follow me on Twitter, and you can find all my work over there.
Awesome.
All right, everyone. Thanks for rolling down the back road with us. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Follow IBT Media. Thanks for rolling down, and we'll see you again next week.
Let's go.